Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. In today's program, we are going to take up for discussion the recent resurgence of terrorism here in Pakistan, especially the Kabul takeover back in 2021 by the Afghan Taliban and Pakistan's right to defend itself against this particular menace. Pakistan carried out an intelligence operation against the terrorists in the border regions inside Afghanistan after that horrific terrorist attack in which 7 brave soldiers of Pakistan armed forces, including 2 officers, were martyred as a result of the terrorist attack on 16th of March 2024. We saw a statement that came from the top authority in Pakistan regarding this particular sacrifice by the brave soldiers of the Pakistan armed forces, especially the President of Pakistan, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, taking the lead, saying that this blood will not go in vain and it would be avenged. Then Pakistan carried out that intelligence operation in the border regions inside Afghanistan. We have seen since the Kabul takeover by the Afghan Taliban, Pakistani authorities have repeatedly conveyed to the interim Afghan authorities that TTP remains to be an absolute red line, and the interim Afghan authorities need to take a decisive and a concrete action to dismantle their safe havens which they have on the Afghan soil, and they are operating from there to carry out these heinous terrorist attacks inside Pakistan. But rather than understanding the gravity and the sensitivity of the situation, firstly, we saw that despite the repeated conveying of the Pakistani authorities regarding their concerns regarding banned TTP operating from the Afghan soil, there had been a state of denial as per the statements of the interim Afghan authorities. After this particular operation was carried out by Pakistan inside Afghanistan, there are statements made by the interim Afghan authorities which are threatening in tone, rather than they are not even by now willing to understand the sensitivity and the gravity of this situation. We have also seen that Pakistan has always been desirous of peaceful and stable Afghanistan. The Foreign Office in its statement had said that Pakistan would continue to work towards finding joint solutions in countering terrorism and prevent any terrorist organization from sabotaging the bilateral relations with Afghanistan. Also, we have seen the statement that has come from the US State Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel. Let me quote him. "We deeply regret the loss of life and injustices sustained during attack in Pakistan. We urge the Taliban to ensure that terrorist attacks are not launched from Afghan soil. We remain committed to ensuring that Afghanistan never again becomes a safe haven for the terrorists who wish to harm the US or our partners and allies," unquote. We'll be talking about all these aspects and these latest developments as to the kind of role and the responsibility the interim Afghan authorities need to play as far as their international obligation as per the Doha agreement that they made to the international community of not allowing the Afghan soil to be used for terrorist activities. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Brigadier Retired Ahmed Saeed Minhas. He is Senior Analyst. Brigadier Minhas, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also on Skype, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Liaquat Shahwani, Senior Analyst. Mr. Shahwani, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. We'll be joined by another participant later in the show. I'll be introducing him as he joins in. Let me begin the discussion with you, Brigadier Minhas. Now, looking at this particular intelligence-based operation in the border regions inside Afghanistan, Pakistani authorities have been repeatedly conveying their legitimate concerns with irrefutable evidence of the involvement of the militant elements who have been involved here in carrying out these heinous terrorist attacks. But there was no concrete action, rather a state of denial expressed repeatedly by the interim Afghan authorities. So there naturally happens to be a limit for how long Pakistan would keep on facing this menace despite giving them the legitimate concerns. So this particular strike, your understanding regarding that, especially in the wake of that horrific terrorist attack that happened on 16th of March.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. The topic of our talk show is like as to what are the reasons basically, or what are the motive of the Afghanistani interim government as to why they are playing with Pakistan's security. So if I start off with the Doha agreement, from there onward, the Taliban interim people at that time who were about to take over from the American forces had promised that their land will not be used against any country or for launching any kind of operations, including the terrorism. But unfortunately, since the Americans they left in August 2021, since then it's almost like 2.5 years have passed. In these 2.5 years, thousands of terrorist actions, terrorist operations have been conducted by the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan inside Pakistan. Why? There could be many number of reasons. The first, if I just take the account of different reasons, first of all, I think that it's a desperation. It's a desperation of the Afghani interim setup, because at this particular moment, none of the countries of the world have recognized them. So they are looking for the identity. So maybe by doing this, they want to tell the world that let's identify us, let's recognize us, you do so, and then we have the obligations to look after whatever the world will ask from us. Otherwise, we don't have any obligations, so whatever comes to our mind, we'll do it. One. Secondly, it's the Indian influence on the Afghani interim government. Why? If we just take, like, if you look at the mandala theory of the Chanakya, which is the strategic thinker of the Indian military strategy, he says that the immediate neighbor is your enemy and your neighbor's neighbor is your friend. So naturally the Afghanistan becomes the natural ally of the Indians. One. Secondly, in the Indian military strategy, they have been looking for two-front war. We are having like around 2,000 kilometers of border with the Indians and more than 2,600 kilometers of border with Afghanistan. If the eastern border is stabilized by the Pakistan military or the armed forces, what if the same on the western border it happens so? So in that case, they want to divide the military effort of the Pakistan along both the borders too. Number three, the Afghani military officers at this particular moment are trained at Indian Military Academy at Dehradun. At Indian Military Academy, Pakistan is projected as enemy. So when they are trained there and they have seen or they have practiced or they have seen with the lens of the Indians that the Pakistan is the enemy of India and the Afghanistan, so naturally whatever plans they make, it goes against Pakistan by the Afghanis. Then of course now recently, alhamdulillah, we had the elections and we are moving towards the political stability after a period of instability. That instability caused us a huge amount with regard to our economy. So now when we are going to stability, it doesn't go into the favor of Indians directly and indirectly in the Afghanistan, because Afghanistan and Indians have the nexus, the security nexus. Last but not the least, the Indians, they are investing in Afghanistan at this particular moment. They are constructing their palace, the presidential palace. They are also funding for the construction of their parliament. They are also building other infrastructure of the government besides road infrastructure. They are linking Afghanistan with Chabahar port through Iran. So all these kind of things if the Indians are doing in favor of the Afghanistan, so naturally there is a quid pro quo which they will ask from the Afghanistan side. So in reaction to that, of course they'll tie whatever the interests they have or Indians have against Pakistan. Now if another reason, if you see, the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan also sees, and the rightist parties, the rightist elements in the Afghanistan, they see a vacuum with regard to the current political situation in Pakistan. If you see, unfortunately, KPK is seen as some other province other than Pakistan. The political statements from that province, unfortunately, are like bit kind of disturbing, which the enemies they think that there's a gap, there's a vacuum in which perhaps they can occupy and come and destabilize Pakistan. Last but not the least, the 2,600 kilometers of the fence which we have there is of course fenced now through a lot of effort by the armed forces themselves. A lot of Pakistani exchequer have been invested into it, but it cannot be looked after physically every inch. So some areas are when they are contours and in the mountains, they just come and infiltrate. So unfortunately, on 16th of March in the morning after Sahri, there was an attack in which the Colonel Kashif, I received him as second lieutenant back in 2004 in my unit. Colonel Kashif was like such a motivated officer, such a well-behaved, well-trained and national kind of officer that you can, every army officer has those kind of qualities, but Kashif had a different kind of, approach towards. It was his third year, and he volunteered himself to be staying there and leading the forces, from the front. And that's why when the terrorists were running away after attacking that post where the Kashif was located, he went outside, he fought them, and unfortunately, Allah's willing, he got martyred. Now, the statements from the Zabiullah Mujahid side, the interim government spokesperson side, that perhaps there would be some unbelievable kind of reaction from the...
Very important point. I will like you to shed detailed light on this particular aspect also,
Yeah, sure.
as well as these statements after this particular attack was launched inside Afghanistan. Very important statements to be analyzed, and the kind of tone that they carry with themselves. Let me proceed with the discussion. Let me proceed towards Mr. Shahwani. Mr. Shahwani, now very comprehensively elaborated by Brigadier Minhas a number of reasons which are showing the desperation, especially which happened to be the topmost reason, as well as the recognition or getting that identity for the international community. How do you see all these reasons being intertwined and being at play at the same time, as far as Afghan authorities' approach towards Pakistan in particular is concerned?
Well, international community, as you know, U.S. Officially they have criticized and urged Afghan government to be engaged in a dialogue, and particular should not allow the anti-terrorist groups to operate inside Afghanistan, and have urged them to close those all hideouts of terrorists. So, well, I think this urge is not quite enough. International community should not confine themselves to urge criticism and condemnation, but they try to force this interim government of Afghanistan to close their hideouts, and should not allow any of terrorists inside their country to operate. And also, 2 years back, when Doha Accord was signed by this interim government, so there are clear consensus and agreement. They have agreed that they will not allow Afghan land to be used for any terrorism activities against any neighboring country, mainly Pakistan. But they are not binding to that agreement. In the last 2.5 years, 500% terrorist activities have been increased, supported by terrorist groups in Afghanistan and shielded by Afghan government. That's quite clear. And this is not only one incident. This is the incident where Pakistan has come and sort of lost its patience. If you look at the background, in last 2 years, there were 650 terrorist attacks inside Pakistan, supported by TTP, conducted by TTP and supported by mainly Afghan government factors. There are many factors, Kandahar factor and Paktika are Kabul factor. So in these 650 terrorist attacks, more than 1,000 Pakistani soldiers, security forces, and also civilians have been murdered. So Pakistan have been very patient. Pakistan wanted to deal with a brotherly Islamic neighbor country with good terms. But unfortunately, Afghans, they are not they are not accepting
Mr. Shahwani, I seek your pardon for the interjection over here. What has kept the interim Afghan authorities in meeting and fulfilling that international obligation, especially in the context of Pakistani authorities, over the number of decades, having done so much for the Afghan people, hosting millions of Afghan refugees, also for a number of decades, and also playing a very pivotal role as far as the Afghan peace and reconciliation efforts were concerned, which ultimately led to the signing of that instrument known as the Doha Peace Accord. And also, as after the international troops withdrew from Afghanistan after 20 years of war, this war-ravaged country was faced with dire humanitarian and economic crisis. And the kind of misery the common Afghan people were facing at that particular point in history, Pakistan took the lead in advocating that particular case of the common Afghan people at all the international fora. So what has kept the interim Afghan authorities from fulfilling that commitment?
Well, I think not only fulfilling the commitments, but we feel a hostile mindset there. And this in turn, Afghan government, when came into power, Pakistan celebrated, and Pakistan was very happy that a friendly government has been came into power in Afghanistan. Pakistan was very happy, but unfortunately, this Afghan government he seems to be in a hostile mindset. And just look at to the statement of Mullah Yaqub, son of former Afghan Amir Mullah Omar. He was just like brother of Pakistan, and he was in support of Pakistan. He would consider Pakistan his second home. But his son on this stage, as a defense minister, he was intimidating and threatening statement gave against Pakistan. So this is unfortunate. And secondly, if you look into the overall scenario of Afghanistan, India has invested $3 billion there, and India wants to safeguard is those investment, and also India wants to play a hostile role against Pakistan. India is one who is fueling this all hostile mindset. And don't forget that China has also shown interest, and also China is investing enormously in Afghanistan. And China is the only country so far which has recognized Afghan ambassador in his country, and Afghanistan also trying to get full diplomatic recognition from China. So now India is also at the parallel. They are worried that China is stepping into Afghanistan. So they also want to prevent China from these investments, and they also want to create hurdles between Pakistan and Afghan government's friendship. So also India is playing a role.
Right. Your point is well taken. Your point is well taken, Mr. Shahwani. As you are of the view of the,
if I could
please go ahead. Complete your thought.
2 or 3 sentences. So on Pakistan side, if you remember 2 months back, Afghan delegation, they visited the Islamabad, and also few days back, Asif Durrani he went to Afghanistan, and also for goodwill gesture, Mufti Taqi Usmani, Islamic scholar from Pakistan, he went to Afghanistan, and he tried to convince them that as a brother countries, we should support each other and should not allow any terrorist activities be done in Pakistan, supported by Afghanistan. So on our side, we have been trying our level best to be engaged in good discussion and dialogue.
Exactly the point.
But unfortunately,
there have been a lot of strides and efforts put in by the Pakistani authorities on various fronts in order to, fill in that vacuum if there was a little bit of lack of trust on the part of the interim Afghan authorities. But we haven't seen any sort of reciprocation coming from the interim Afghan authorities. I'll come back to you, take your understanding when you talk about India's role in the kind of situation that is unfolding as far as the approach and the attitude of the interim Afghan authorities is concerned. For now, we are joined by another participant in the show, Mr. Sangeen Panezai. He's security analyst joining us on the phone line. Mr. Panezai, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. As per your understanding, we've seen that Pakistani authorities have repeatedly, with irrefutable evidence, conveyed to the interim Afghan authorities and impressed upon them repeatedly that, look, this is your international obligation. You made a promise to the international community as per the Doha Peace Agreement that you won't allow the Afghan soil to be used against any other country. So Pakistan, having done so much for our last many decades for the Afghan people, why haven't we seen any sort of reciprocation on the part of interim Afghan authorities till a day came that Pakistan had to take that action inside Afghanistan's territory of targeting those militant outfits?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. Well, primarily allow me to pay rich tributes to our soldiers and officers whom embraced Shahadat recently. Indeed, they deserve lots of homage and respect. Primarily, your question is really pertinent. Pakistan has repeatedly, ever since Afghan, the interim government who seized power in 2 years back, Pakistan has been the well-wisher of those who are running the government, but having repeatedly conveyed the message to address the concerns of Pakistan, but unfortunately they have not paid any attention to that. Now, if we connect the dots in the larger context, as per the Doha Agreement, the Afghan interim government, they were signatory to the Doha Agreement that Afghan soil will not be used against any country, one. But unfortunately, they are not complying with that. Pakistan has the concern when it comes to TTP, even the regional powers, whether that is the China, Russia, you have got the ETIM, China has been much disturbed with that, TTP. But unfortunately, those who are running the helm of affairs in Afghanistan, they are not taking seriously. That's why Pakistan was forced to take this responsible action in terms of self-defense, where the government of Pakistan ordered with the deployment of precision-guided munitions by the Pakistan Air Force. And we need to understand the recent strike. It really reflects a significant shift in strategy aimed at preemptively eliminating imminent threats emanating from across the border. In the recent past, the state institutions of Pakistan have adopted this tit-for-tat, a defensive strategy in the region. Now, responding to your question, as you mentioned, why the Afghan government not taking this seriously? They have to take it seriously. If the Afghan interim government, if they really seek international recognition of your government, if they really want international legitimacy of your government, they will have to do it. But unfortunately, ever since they took power, they are not taking it seriously. I think there could be various factors. One factor could be the global dimension attached to it. And there are external factors as well. I would recall you recently Pakistan envoy to Afghanistan, Ambassador Durrani recently has claimed that the foreigner external factors, a case in point is the India has been sponsoring these TTP, has been funding these TTP and militant groups against Pakistan. So Pakistan has a very legitimate and responsible right to ask these questions, and Pakistan has repeatedly engaged Afghan government to avoid using, to deny the space to these terrorist groups. But unfortunately, they did not take it seriously. So Pakistan, it was very necessary step to safeguard, to protect
the... It was a necessary step as far as the right to self-defense of Pakistan is concerned against this particular menace which emanates from the Afghan soil. Mr. Panezai, you have also mentioned this very important factor, India's factor as far as the situation regarding Afghanistan as to the approach of the interim Afghan authorities is concerned. Now, here is the equation. On one side, Pakistan does a lot for the Afghan people over the number of decades. We also see that Doha Peace Agreement that comes into the discussion so often, that is so much talked about, the first and the foremost condition of which was interim Afghan authorities not allowing the Afghan soil to be used for terrorist activities. Pakistan played a pivotal role in the Afghan peace and reconciliation efforts. Afterwards, the dire humanitarian and economic crisis. You also mentioned, other participants in the show have also mentioned this India factor. Now, on one side, Pakistan doing so much during the entire Afghan peace and reconciliation efforts led to the Doha peace deal, after which the Afghan Taliban took over the power. Now, if India is investing inside Afghanistan, which side of the equation naturally should gain more weight as far as aligning the approach and the attitude of the Afghan authorities is concerned? By that dent through which they took over the power in Afghanistan, or now the recent investment, if it is being made by India? So towards which side naturally, as far as the bilateral relationship in the Committee of Nations is concerned, the tilt of the interim Afghan authorities should be?
Well, it's quite simple. If some senior vices within the Afghan interim government, if they really wish international legitimacy of their government, international recognition of their government, if they really want to deny the international isolation, they will have to realize their core interest, and the core interest lies abiding by the international norms and international law, which they have been signatory to the Doha Agreement. On one side, the short-sightedness may reflect they might get some support from the India financially, economically, but if you cannot change the Afghan interim setup, we'll have to understand you cannot change the neighbors. You have the long border of more than 2,000 kilometers. That is Pakistan. Pakistan has been hosting happily, very happily, gracefully hosting Afghan refugees for more than 5 decades. We will have very brotherly relations with our Afghan brothers. But when it comes to the core national interest of Pakistan, when it comes to the security of citizens of Pakistan, there's only absolutely zero tolerance.
And this is totally unacceptable for the Pakistani authorities. Already declared a number of times that TTP remains to be an absolute red line. Either the Afghan authorities hand them over to Pakistan, or either they themselves take a concrete action against them. Now, Mr. Panezai, looking at these statements which have come after this particular operation that was carried out by Pakistan inside Afghanistan, rather than these statements basically show, rather than understanding the sensitivity and the gravity of the situation on the ground, the interim Afghan authorities have come up with the statements which speak volume that they are threatening in nature. First, they speak of their long history of having defeated superpowers and having a rich history of freedom fight and resistance against the superpowers, and under no circumstances can tolerate this sort of aggression. So when there is a limit to the patience of the Pakistani authorities, and for how long Pakistani authorities would keep on letting the blood to be spilt over this side of the border, despite repeatedly conveying them, then we get these threatening tone statements from them. It goes on to say, their chief spokesperson says that there would be dire consequences of this action, and then Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan does not allow anyone to harm anyone's security by using the territory of Afghanistan. Again, the denial, that very repeated pattern on the part of interim Afghan authorities. What do these statements actually speak about?
It really speaks volume, a very irresponsible statement. Rather than accepting, trying to mend the already strained relationship, first of all, it really speaks volume, a very irresponsible statement. If unless diplomatic channels are activated, this will likely to escalate. On Pakistan part, Pakistan has acted very responsibly. Can you just imagine, more than 2 years, through various conferences, through backdoor diplomatic channels, Pakistan conveyed its serious concerns and reservations, but they did not take it seriously. So the ball remains in the Afghan interim court to take these seriously, because end of the day they will have to take care of the Afghan people. They are suffering. They are in international isolation. Not a single country have given a formal international recognition. On the other hand, we will have to also understand the international global dimension attached to it. The Afghan government should think long-lastingly. China to somehow try to engage the Afghan government. But China is also likely to be concerned with the escalating security situation in Afghanistan, the way various global terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda, ISK, ETIM, TTP, being the presence of these terrorist groups in Afghanistan. And that is not the reports of Pakistan. These are the reports of United Nations Security Council. A couple of reports have come out that Afghan soil has been used. And interestingly, we were expecting ever since the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, there would be a reduction of terrorist groups. But unfortunately, it is in negation of the Doha Agreement, there has been a spike of terrorist militant groups. They have been emboldened with the takeover of Afghan government. Now, the international dimension, the China's response, what do Russia think of it, and US?
I think about the responsibility of the United States of America. We've seen the statement coming from the State Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel also. Now, he has once again urged the Taliban to ensure that the terrorist attacks are not launched from Afghan soil. As far as Pakistan's fight against the menace of terrorism is concerned, we have recently, in the recent past, also seen the statements coming from the State Department expressing unequivocal and unconditional support towards Pakistan's battle against this scourge. What is expected from the US from this point onwards?
Well, absolutely. US do understand, and US will welcome the Pakistan's actions against TTP, because this TTP is getting the very serious velocity. It might not limit or affect only Pakistan. It could affect the regional security as well. In recently, Pakistan submitted this document at United Nations. Pakistan clearly said TTP is getting velocity and may become a global threat. So the US do understand. I think US will welcome this step of Pakistan, because Pakistan has been the victim of terrorism for last couple of decades. Even just last year, more than 660 attacks which claimed 1,000 Pakistani soldiers. So it's very serious. Pakistan has done a lot, and now the primary responsibility also lies in the international community.
Right, Mr. Sangeen Khan Panezai, security analyst, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Brigadier Minhas, already the first and the foremost point that you highlighted was the desperation to get that identity, that international recognition. Don't you think by resorting to such type of tactics, it's going to be counterproductive for them, rather than it's going to push them to a longer distance in getting that recognition if they are vying for that?
Right, your observation is right, but it's on the flip side. It could also happen that since the Afghanis are not being controlled, or they do not have any obligation, international obligations, so they might opt for having identity recognition. If they're doing so, the world may think that less we give them some kind of responsibility, less we give them some kind of obligation, only then Afghanis would do that. Now, as for the statement is concerned, I would like to add what Shahwani Sahab was also saying. Now, the kind of statement which the interim government of the Afghani Taliban have given shows again the desperation. They want to let the world feel as to if they do not look after the Afghani interests, they would keep doing such kind of acts inside Pakistan. Now, there's a domestic angle to this attack also. How? Recently, you have seen that since October 2023, which was the last day of Afghan refugees to go back to their own country, when they reached back, it basically added miseries to the Afghani economy or the locals there. So they want to have the kind of pressure on the Pakistan not to let further Afghan refugees to go back to their own country. There are 1.7 million unregistered refugees are there, which Pakistan said that they must register either, or else they go back to Afghanistan.
Ironically so, if you allow me to add something to it, ironically they had made claims that the situation in Afghanistan is getting better on the economic front, and that was also referred by Pakistan's permanent representative, Mr. Munir Akram at the United Nations also, that if the situation is getting better there, so what's the harm in getting the illegal immigrants back?
Yeah, actually, they are the dollars from the Pakistan going into the Afghanistan through smuggling. One, this is the reason that why the economy is the topmost thriving economy at this particular moment as per the different stats. But they're not doing any trade in dollars. They're just building the reserves. They're doing the trade in the Afghani currency, and recently they have decided to do it in Pakistani currency as well. Now, further to the domestic angle, why the attack was there, I just wanted to add one. Inside Kabul, the Taliban regime is exercising its control. Outside Kabul, the other warlords are dominating. If you go towards the western part of the Afghanistan, the Taliban do not have that kind of right. If you go towards the northern part of which has the linkage borders with the Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, again they do not have that kind of control. So there is a polarized society. There is they failed basically in 2.5 years to implement Sharia, and by doing such kind of acts, having a kind of limited war along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, perhaps for the domestic audience they gave this kind of a statement, one, and secondly they want to join them together. The polarized society can only be joined together if there is a war. So they think that way also. So the kind of a statement which the Sabiullah Mujahid gave, in which they threatening statements were them, I think still that it is for their domestic audience, one, though it should not have been there, it's totally irresponsible. The choice of words were not there, but then you can give them the cushion of like having a weak kind of English also. But in case of Pakistan, the Foreign Office, the two buildings apart from where we are speaking at this particular moment, the last paragraph of the MOFA's statement is still asks or requests the Afghanistani people or Afghani interim government to please come and work together, have some kind of joint strategy to look after or to see as to what kind of elements are after Pakistan-Afghanistan friendship. And Pakistan very vividly said that we respect the Afghanistani sovereignty. The Pakistani action is basically is taken along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border in the rugged terrain in which the conventional kind of forces they cannot operate, and that's why Zabiullah Mujahid also committed or said that we do not have that kind of writ in those areas. So Pakistanis going after them, because till the time you don't punish them physically, they'll keep doing that. Your recent example is there with regard to the Iran also, in which the rugged terrain we went after the strong hideouts of the Balochi separatists which were hiding there, and then there was a calm between Pakistan and Iran. Hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, Pakistan and Afghanistan tension will also not go above. Why? Because Pakistan is a very responsible state in the Committee of Nations, and we respect the sovereignty of the countries also.
We are still desirous of peaceful and stable Afghanistan with joint efforts with the interim Afghan authorities in the counter-terrorism domain.
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Shahwani, now looking at this particular statement, what's your analysis? If you allow me to bring in this quote by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, that says that IAEA MOFA reminds Pakistan that Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan has a rich history of freedom fight and resistance against the superpowers, and under no circumstances can tolerate this aggression on its soil. Now, if we go by this particular statement, presumably if we say that on the prima facie it is a true statement, so if they have a rich history of fight against the superpowers, why can't they pull in that similar fight against a very limited group that is posing a threat to Pakistan, and that has been the major concern of Pakistani authorities? If they were able to defeat superpowers, why can't they beat TTP?
Well, it all depends on intention and will of an individual or a nation. How does he intend and how does he act? Against superpower, they were quite serious, and they would consider that fight a religious duty, a jihad, and they wholeheartedly fought against those superpowers, and they were not alone in that entire jihad or war. Pakistan, Islamic world, Western countries, NATO, all of them joined them and enabled them to fight the superpower. So today, if they want to revive that history, and they want to be recognized as the fighters and people of faith and inspiration, so they should again join and together with those old forces, and they should be responsible uh, in their behavior if they want to again have an international recognition, honor and prestige. So then they should help out their old friend, their neighbor, their Islamic friend, whole time have been supporting them, Pakistan. And now they are unfortunately supporting, enabling, equipping the enemies of Pakistan. And even they're trying to convince Pakistan that TTP is not a terrorist group and Pakistan should sit with them on table talk. So this is very unfortunate. At least
Right,
they
your
should
point
know.
is well taken. Unfortunately, we are short of time. Mr. Shahwani, very quickly, you already mentioned India's investment, India's factor in this particular whole equation. What are the options for Pakistani authorities in order to address that particular factor as far as India trying to increase its influence in Afghanistan is concerned?
Well, China is also interested in Afghanistan. They are heavily trying to invest in Afghanistan, and China is whole time tested friend of Pakistan, and also China want to extend their One Belt, One Road initiative to Afghanistan, and Pakistan also part of that initiative. So the interests of Pakistan and India almost are the same. So Pakistan and China are the same. They are one page. So Pakistan should urge China that they should play a vital role against this mindset of
So
Afghanistan.
the collective
And
efforts of
also,
Pakistan and
I think,
China
yes,
can
that
be an
conveys them that
alternative to Indian designs in Afghanistan. Brigadier Minhas, your last closing comments regarding as to what is expected from the US by looking at these statements by Mr. Vedant Patel.
Okay, the US has already given a very strong statement. They have condemned the Afghanistani supporting the TTP, and at the same time they asked Pakistan, requested Pakistan to exercise restraint. That means to say that the world and especially the US knows that Pakistan is much more strengthened, much more powerful as compared to Afghanistan. So any escalation would depend upon Pakistan. So Pakistan, being a responsible nation state, would never like to escalate the war along the western border with Afghanistan. What could be the solution to this? Immediately, if I give you three solutions: one, that we should have a joint working group comprising of the foreign office, military bureaucracy, and the political leadership. Two, we should have the joint counterterrorism training in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. Number three, there should be a hotline between the foreign secretaries, maybe, or military operations, DG military operations, so that any kind of misunderstanding can be looked after. And last but not the least, if the Afghani officers start coming back to the Pakistan military academy, so there will be win-win situation for both the countries.
Brigadier retired Ahmed Saeed, Minhas, senior analyst, joining us in the studio. Thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype, we were joined by Mr. Liaquat Shahwani, senior analyst. Mr. Shahwani, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for being with us.